my journey began. It's graduation time. Family is very important to me, including my puppies. The Marine Corps played a huge role in my life and allowed me to be ambitious, inspiring, a mentor, and achieve all of my goals. As a financial expert, I've received multiple awards, done various events as a guest speaker all over the U.S. with my platform of creating healthy financial habits, along with having my own business, all leading up to my show. Come along for the journey.
Hello, Gems, and welcome. For the month of February, our theme continues to be Black History Month and focusing on civil unrest, our justice system, education, and Black love. For your fierce, fun facts, your fourth episode with my and your new favorite uncle, we'll be discussing Black love. Here are a few statistics on possible contributions to why we do or don't see or date Black love. Black. Recently, 29% of African Americans were married compared to 48% of all Americans. That's roughly about 50% of Blacks who have never been married. Compared to both white and Hispanic women, Black women marry later in life and are less likely to marry at all. In 2008, 16% of Blacks married someone whose race or ethnicity was different from theirs. That number has currently increased and continues to rise. Nationwide, Black students rank last when it comes to graduation. Blacks graduated high school at a rate of 69% compared to Hispanics who graduate at 73% and whites who graduate at a rate of 86%. On average, Black men earn the lowest income out of all ethnicities at only 87 cents for every dollar earned, compared to a white man who could earn an even dollar for dollar. Our guest today is my favorite uncle. Now, we chat every day, single day, about anything and everything. He's one of my biggest supporters. He encourages me, and he's one of my biggest and best cheerleaders. We're always twinning today. Lean back, favorite uncle. Let me see you, JR. Boom, boom, boom. You caught the little tip of it. And I thought to myself, everyone should have a favorite uncle. Why not share mine with you? So here's a few more fun facts about him. His favorite Black author is Zora Neale Hurston. Favorite Black sitcom is Living Single. And what he remembers most about his parents is that they were deeply in love with each other. His most unique thing that he enjoys or really embraces about being Black is that we are survivors. So welcome, favorite uncle, to the show.
Hi, favorite niece.
Thank you. It's always great to have you. What was that?
Thank you for welcoming me today.
Absolutely. So let's talk about this juicy topic of Black love, because we have a lot of information to cover. So first and foremost, another factor that we discuss is the percentage of Black men who are incarcerated. So that accounts for roughly about 580,000 of the entire prison population in the US, because you can't date who's not available.
Really can't.
You really can't. So, and how many Black men have we known personally to be incarcerated for a short or amount of time? I know about 4 or 5. What about you?
I've known a few. I've known about 3 or 4.
Right. And these sentences range from anything short, we're talking short, 90 days to 6 months, all the way up into your 10, 15, 20 years. The same for you?
Yeah, it's been about that.
And so the question is, concerning Black love, would you wait?
I personally wouldn't. I know people who have, but I wouldn't wait.
Right. And, personally, I wouldn't wait either. My grandmother always said, and my father, your brother always said, you have a life to live. You waiting around for someone, waiting for them to get out of incarceration or waiting for them to do whatever it is taking away from your current life and what you have to leave. So girl, I'd be like, you better live your life and stop waiting around, but you are correct. There are people. Yeah, you got to live, but there are people who wait. And what happens is when you wait, you maybe miss out on all these opportunities. So we've seen Specifically, sometimes in the Black community, these women who are waiting these 10 years, 15 years. I know you had mentioned you knew someone who waited for, 18 years?
18 years. This movie Time, this woman waited for 18 years for her man to get out of jail.
Yeah, and during that time didn't date. She didn't get pregnant by anybody else. She waited.
Waited
18 years. So going along with that, we're moving on. So we definitely have a lot of other topics to talk about. So we can't leave out the DL men, or the down low men. So obviously it's hard to get statistics on it because it's a secret, only to be found out once the secret is revealed. So for everybody that's out there, we'll discuss the LGBTQA and I community in another show later on this year. We're not leaving them out this year or right now in this segment. We're just specifically talking about the Black love. So holding secrets for anyone or any group is a no-go, right? It's
a no-go for a lot of people, because you're already taking somebody out of the Black community, because these men have girlfriends and they have their down low lover.
And it goes on for months. It can go on for years. And, we want people to understand this is more than just being bisexual. We're not talking about that. This is a breach of trust in a relationship, because when you're open and honest with someone, to be bisexual, to have multiple partners, that's the trust that you all have, because there's an agreement. You say yes and I say yes. This is one of those where you said yes to yourself and led someone else to believe they were in a relationship with a man who was monogamous to them. I know, coming from Atlanta, and you've lived in Atlanta too, Atlanta is known to have statistically more higher Black men who are on the DL than a lot of other states. And, even dating in Atlanta was difficult, not because that was the only factor, but that is still a huge factor when it comes to wanting to date, let's say, a Black man in that community. Is he or isn't he on the DL, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is just so different. So speaking of DL, we have polyamory. So we're getting ready to see that. It's increasing in the Black community. So we're seeing a whole lot more of swingers, your open relationships, open marriages. They account for roughly about 5% of the US relationships. Again, those statistics are roughly because people aren't just saying, oh, we're over here, we're open. So it's just kind of going off of what we have seen and what people have reported. So some Black couples and individuals are experimenting with not having monogamy. So what are your thoughts on that?
I'm a very live and let live person, but at the same time, when you add that to the number, with the small number of people who are getting married and the number of people who are incarcerated and the number of people who are in down low relationships, that shrinks more and more the number of viable men who are out there that women can marry in the Black community.
It does, because again, if you're looking for that monogamous relationship or a marriage, the chances, like you said, are running slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. You were out here, and now with all the other factors, trying to find that monogamy is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And you're running into people, at least even, with myself, I'm running into guys who want more non-monogamous relationships, or in all of these multiple relationships, and they're fine with it. Their expectations is you don't expect for them to be the only one, and you definitely aren't the only one for them. So where does that leave you if you're specifically wanting, that Black love?
It makes it hard, because these men are going to want to run around longer. But there's a window in which, women want to settle down and have a family and have children. And the guy wants to run around longer until he's older, but, women can't do that forever.
Right. And again, it's back on the woman. And we're not beating up on the men. These are just the statistics that we were able to find. It's up to the woman to say, again, do we wait? This is the same thing for the incarcerated, because some men, not all, again, like you said, they eventually, the storm runs out of rain, right? They eventually say, okay, maybe I want to settle down. I'm done, just with the multiple marriages, multiple open relationships. It's up to the woman to say, do I want to wait for this? I like this man. Do I want to wait for him to commit to me and only me? You start to looking around and you're saying, well, what else can I do? What are my other options? And sometimes we see women who try to get into these non-monogamous relationships, and it just it goes downhill. We've seen all these examples where, we were fine. We had an open relationship and then boom, it didn't go as planned because feelings get in the way and time gets in the way, who you spend your time with. All of those things are factors that get into the way. I'm not saying that there aren't any non-monogamous relationships and open relationships that don't work. It's just we hear a lot more of the other ones that don't. And so that brings us to the next one of, who is left to date, right? Interracial dating has significantly increased. So we're seeing more Black people dating and marrying outside of our ethnic group. So when you take into account, again, all of those previous statistics regarding incarcerations, the lower graduation, the lower income, sometimes we learn to shift our eyesight to who is available to date. And I always say, for me, look at the men who are paying attention to you. Look at the people who actually want to be in your life, rather than the men who are, I want you and you and you. So what are your thoughts on that?
Sometimes it's Bobby across the hall that's looking at you instead of Rashad down the street.
Absolutely. And sometimes it just is. And, again, we're not saying there's anything wrong with interracial dating or interracial marriage. However, regarding Black love, this is something to take into account on perhaps why we're not seeing more of it or the length of it. We may see it and then the relationships explode, they break up. So those interracial marriages, and you're always so funny, you always say might be Bob next door rather than Raphael or Hector down the street. So you never know. And that also brings me to another huge one, I think specifically that we see in the Black community is the stereotype of the angry, aggressive Black woman. Oh my gosh, I've heard this. We've heard this horrible stereotype for decades. You've heard it from both Black men and other men of other ethnicities echo this sentiment when not wanting to date Black females. So where does this come from, and how do we kind of educate men to embrace Black females rather than passing judgment on us?
I think a lot of this has come from the fact that the Black woman has become stronger, more successful, more capable, and she's just in a position now where she is the boss of things now. She's running the household, and men are feeling a little bit more threatened by that. It's not the same anymore. They have to bring more to the table in order to be a part of that relationship. They just have to bring more to the table now.
Yes, and bringing more to the table, talk about how things have changed over time. Before it was, our past generations, our parents and parents' generation, it was, this is who you met, you're going to marry, and you're just going to work it out. You are just going to work it out. Whereas now, we're seeing, I know specifically Black females, we have more increased earning power. We're breaking glass ceilings. We are the CEOs and the presidents of a lot of huge corporations. We're moving, we're shaking, we're becoming homeowners as single women, and even, birthing children and having children on our own because, for maybe all of these other factors. The weight gain, like you said, and it's another topic, we can't wait to be a mother forever. A guy can technically have children in his 60s, and some even in their 70s, as long as they're healthy. A woman, her chances begin to decrease the older and older she gets. So if that's something a woman is wanting to do, often we do see more Black women, doing it on our own, but that doesn't mean that we don't need a man. Good Lord, stop saying that. Right?
It just means that the man has to offer more when he's coming to the table, because if she has to do it on her own, she can. It's not saying she wants to, not saying she doesn't need the man. It's saying he has to do more than just show up.
You have to do more than just show up and say, here I am, I'm handsome, take me as I am. Because a lot of the times, the woman, we want companionship, right? We want the forever husband, the forever significant other in our lives. we can, like you said, do it on our own, but it's not about that. It's not a pecking order. This is not a comparison of, how much do you make or how much do you bring to the table, but you do need to bring more than just your looks. What are you willing to do to supplement her life and hers to yours? So I always say, because, like I said, I've met plenty of Black men who don't date Black women for these erroneous reasons. And it kind of filters onto other ethnicities. Well, if Black men don't even want to date Black women, then why would I want to date them? Right?
Right.
Right. And I see that. And I try to tell people, well, when have you dated a Black woman? And, try for yourself, because your experience may be different than somebody else, because there's all kinds of factors. Personalities may not have been the right fit, may not have been the right timing. But for you, non-Black man, it could be the best experience you've ever had. And that could definitely be one of the reasons why we're seeing a whole lot more interracial marriages as well, because Black women are tired of the stereotype. We're tired of just being berated by that. And we're saying, you know what? This gentleman over here, let's, pick a name, whatever name, he's liked me. I haven't given him a time of day because I was waiting for the right Black man. But you know what? I kind of like Josh over here. Josh likes me. Let's try. And then you try, and it's a beautiful, beautiful union. So with that, there tends to be two trains of thoughts when we're talking about Black love. On one side, you have people who are keep it Black, no mixing of the ethnicities, keeping the genes or the pure ancestry line visible. The more we date outside of our ethnicity and have children, we lose the visible ancestry and create new ones, right? So right now, you can visibly look at me and say that is a Black woman. If you date more outside of your ethnicity group, let's say if I were to marry a white man, our children would be a hybrid of the two, maybe lose a little bit of the curls. Maybe they have the straight hair, who knows, maybe they have green eyes. If they continue to date, then you get further and further away from this look and you create something new. So one of those thoughts says, let's keep the genes, ancestry line visible. And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm of a couple thoughts about that. I love Black love. I do. I absolutely do. But I think that for people, maybe part of that is about the appearance of Black love. Because, for example, there are people who say that Michelle and Barack Obama are the epitome of Black love. But they forget that Barack is biracial.
Mm-hmm. Right. And they forget that as well. So, or what is it that they're saying? They like the actual union or the power couple rather than more of the visibility. Or that brings us to something else that we've talked about, you and I, before, on what people view as Black. So the other train of thought is date or mix ethnicities and blend cultures. We're all one melting pot. We'll get along better with each other when we learn to be together with one another, which can include dating and marriages. And that brings up the biracial identity crisis. I've had some friends who are biracial, and the identity crisis, who are they and should they have to choose? And, we talk about that. If you don't choose for yourself, because you may not want to, you may not have to, society will. They will choose for you, because I have seen, and so have you, biracial children who look like me. They can look like me because that's just how that is the beauty of genes. Society will say, that's a Black woman, not that is a white woman, because we see this, right? So the biracial identity crisis, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that basically we're going to be seeing more and more biracial children. We're going to be seeing more and more biracial families. And the world just needs to find a way to get used to it.
Right.
They just do. I do understand that the world will choose for you based on your appearance, but appearance isn't everything.
Right.
The child's going to choose the child may choose to have both lineages and to identify with both. They have their right to do that. And I think that's wonderful.
And we're seeing that more like on applications, it has your standard white, Black, Hispanic, Latino, Then it has multicultural or, other, because, some segments of the population realize that you can have a lineage that is a mixture of everything. And why should you have to choose? Or do you? It comes down to like we talked about, what are your own personal thoughts on that and how you want to identify with that? And I think that goes back to when we're discussing Black love, it's easy to identify it because it is Black. It is in its true form, Black love, right? And this goes all the way back to, and, this will be for another topic, but all the way back into, being just Black. Let's just say even in the 1930s, 1920s, people like to think of that like it's so long ago. It really isn't that long ago. It's what, 2 grandmas ago, a great grandmother was born during that area. And the want to preserve your Blackness in a time where being Black wasn't respected, being Black was shunned upon, being Black was, it just wasn't anything to be based on what society said. And so out of that, sometimes people want to preserve that in a way to just say, hey, our ancestry worked hard to have Black rights, to have Black voting. Let's not be so quick to just blend it away and just say, hey, we're all here. But I do understand the need for biracial children and children of any type of interracial marriages or any type of unions to have a decision to either pick or not pick, because it is their choice. And being able to just be proud of both sets of parents or their lineage, right?
Yeah.
So exactly. What next for Black love? Because this is indeed about Black love. So there are plenty of Black only dating sites, matchmaking services, organizations, groups, churches to preserve the visibility and the identity of the Black culture. Likewise, there are just as many equal multicultural sites, dating sites that encourage mixing, blending of ethnicities. And with that being said, what is it that we really and truly want as a Black culture, as Black people? Do we want the lineage of Black love, that ancestry line, the visibility of it? Do we want the appearance, like we said, of Black love, the immediate awareness of who we are? So not only can you see me, you can identify with that. There isn't I wonder if, let me ask her if she's mixed with that. It's that immediate awareness. And that goes back to your Barack and Michelle Obama example of the awareness and the immediate thoughts of what people said. They just said Black love, but like you said, they forget that he's biracial. And, me and you talk all the time, people forget that Mariah Carey is biracial. People forget that Halle Berry is biracial. And I'm like, wait, where have you been? Like, they're just looking at them and they're saying, oh, she's just a beautiful Black woman. That's Halle Berry. Oh, Mariah Carey, she has to be white. Maybe she has a European look. No, they both identify as Black biracial women. And it's just, again, what are we trying to look and what are we trying to preserve? Another one that we see even more now, and she's phenomenal, is Meghan Markle. Now, before, she married, of course, Prince Harry, I dare say when people saw her on her TV show, would have never thought that she was biracially and Black. Until, what are your thoughts on that?
It's really funny because, she and Harry had Archie.
Right.
And Archie is now Archie is the first biracial child in the royal family.
Mm-hmm.
And Meghan got so much flack, more flack than we've ever seen anybody in the royal family get in the press.
Right.
And a lot of that is because she's Black.
Is because she's Black. So it didn't matter what this looked like, because she's about this color. But what they saw was this. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, he's not marrying this, which would be okay if he did. But wow, why are you giving her so much flack? And then when you talk about the lineage, their baby Archie, he's the most handsome young, red hair, fair skinned child. Right. And so again, when we talk about if you're a component of the visibility, well, that visibility, like I said, has a little bit been faded away. He doesn't have any more of the kinky hair that Meghan Markle's mother has. And he definitely doesn't have the caramel or the darker complexion. He's definitely moving on to that. And whenever he grows up and he marries who he is, then that's how the lineage kind of gets, spread out over time. And again, some people can look at that and just say, hey, what happened to the Blackness? Like someone needs to, remind them that there's Black in the family. And, Meghan Markle, go ahead.
I said, but Archie's still going to know who he is. And Archie's still going to know where he came from because she knows where she came from.
Right. And I think that was a wonderful thing when her mother came to the wedding.
Exactly.
And everyone got to see it. Go ahead.
I think a lot of this fear that people have is that we're going to be erased because history has tried to erase us.
Right.
And that, I think part of the fear that people have about interracial relationships is that our history will disappear and that who we are is going to disappear. And if we educate people and if we educate our children and we let our children know who they are and where they came from, that's not going to happen.
Right. And that, leads us on to how do we preserve both of them to make sure that your children's children, if you decide to have these interracial unions or marriages, you're dating, that they remember where we are. And so a lot of things that you and I came up with, one, of course, teaching our youth about Black history, knowing that, like you said, it's not so long ago where we had segregation. People like to think that it's like some 1800, 1700. No, again, two grandmas back had white sinks and Black sinks. Okay. And then, through the culture, teaching the culture, the cooking, our soul food, remembering what that is, because we grew up, in the Robinson family, our soul food is your traditional Southern meals. When you say soul food, you're going to get some type of chicken, some collard greens, some cornbread, some black-eyed peas, teaching those things, what it means for that part of the culture, along with your dress, your songs, your traditions. And I know me and you joke about traditions all the time. Thanksgiving is your typical soul food spread. I know our Christmas meals, you had ham, we would have a leg of lamb. And then your New Year's Eve, there was all kinds of traditions. You need to have greens that brings you money. Black-eyed peas give you this. It's all those superstitions that are generations back.
Hogmogs and chitlins.
Yeah, hogmogs and chitlins for New Year's Eve. Ooh, we with some hot sauce. They got to be clean right, and we don't just eat anybody's. No, they got to be clean right. Like some hot sauce. That used to be part of New Year's meals since I can remember. And again, knowing. Go ahead.
I said loved it.
Love it. Eat it up. And then knowing your roots, your family history passed down through stories and memories. I think sometimes we forget to have these stories and memories with our children, with the Black youth, to let them know who we are and what we came from, the struggles that we have being Black in America. And it's unfortunate that sometimes we don't have these conversations until something in the news happens. And then people may ask, well, have you experienced anything like that? And we have. We have more than one story to say, hey, this is the experiences what I have, but making sure that we pass those along as well.
And it's just so important to tell the oral history of your families and to let them know what happened. My parents marched on Washington. Mm-hmm. And to know that, especially with what's happened in the world over the last 4 years, was very important for me to know that. And it gave me the strength to deal with what's been happening in our society over the last 4 years, especially during this time.
Absolutely. And with that, you have your visiting museums to get more of the history. You have our arts, the jazz, the opera, poets, the storytelling, reading books written by Black authors. Of course, your entertainment, watching Black cinema, your movies and TV, to get a little bit more of somebody else's storytelling and their experience, the true ones. And I always say, and I'm always a huge component, I'll never stop saying it, is getting involved in Black community organizations and groups. They're in every city, every town, every state, nationwide. Even if you want to go international, there's all kinds of groups for you to get involved in the culture, any culture that you choose. At least you choose one of each. You know, for me, I always tell people, you know, when I'm looking into the organizations that I choose a variety of who I am. I have my veterans group. I have my all-female groups. I have my Black groups. I have my exercise groups. I have all these different groups that make up me that I want to learn more about. Do the same when it comes to your history. It'll definitely give you more of those experiences and a broader sense of where your ancestry came from. So that visibility and the awareness will always be in here. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think you actually covered all of it.
We covered all of it. We did. Go ahead.
No, I was saying I think we covered all of it.
We did. And you know what? Go ahead.
I can't stress how important families telling the history is. It's so important to tell your family history and for people to know what your family went through, because you're right, it's not all that long ago. People think these things happened years and years ago, and really it hasn't. You know, I was reading something earlier this week that who was it? That Martin Luther King, Anne Frank, and Diane Sawyer were born the same year.
I think it was Barbara Walters.
Barbara Walters were all born in the same year.
Yeah.
And it just, we don't think about things like that.
Right. And we don't, but that's how, go ahead.
And people think that those histories all happen in like a different time space, and they didn't. They all happened in the same one.
Right. And that's the importance of being able to put those years and those timelines together to know that, hey, if he could still be alive, like he wouldn't be like 150 years old. Like people tend to think those years were so long ago, and they're not. So definitely a really good point to preserve your own cultural Black love history and preservation of it. No matter which side you choose to go down, whatever train of thought it is, the preservation is still there. So gems, it's our time for your financial gems. So me and my favorite uncle came up with a few Robinson family financial gems for you today. And these are gems that are passed down to us by our parents and by our elders from generation to generation. So first and foremost, we always were taught to have cash in our wallet. And I know people now, like, you know, credit card, you have all kinds of currency online, but I don't care. There's been plenty of times in today's society where I've gone to get something to eat and they say they don't take credit card and you need cash. So always having cash in your wallet. Number two, save money for rainy days. That's just what we're told you. Whatever their rainy day is, it doesn't need to be an emergency fund. It could be someone that needs just to borrow something, but it's just a rainy day. You always want to make sure you have enough savings for that. Never give your last dollar. That's what we do. We just don't do. When you pull out that wallet, you look in your bank account, you don't give out your last. It's just, hey, that's just what we're taught. Don't spend all your money in one place. That's a big one. That goes to versatile or being variety, not just going to one shoe store. I pick shoes because I love shoes, and spending all your whole entire paycheck there. Learning to spread it out, learning self-control and patience as well, that you don't have to spend your entire paycheck in one store at one time. And our last one, don't loan what you can't afford to lose. Ain't that the truth, favorite uncle?
So true, because you're not getting it back most of the time.
Don't loan what you can't afford to lose. So, Gems, it is our show custom to have every guest provide their favorite inspirational quote. So, favorite uncle, what is your next inspirational quote that you would like to share with us today?
Love is not the happy ending, it's the happy beginning.
There we go. I love it. I love it. Love is love. And sometimes we just can't help who we fall in love with, and that's okay. Be blessed that you found love. So awesome. So, favorite uncle, thank you so much for your friendship, your family ties, and being a guest on the show today and being part of the journey.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
As always. So, Gems, creating healthy financial habits is a lifelong commitment. Remember, without change, there'd be no butterflies. I love that. Changing habits, changing lives, and changing futures are all up to you. Till next time, Gems, take care.